Hello there, saints, and welcome to Saved and Justified with me, Leborang Chisiza. I hope you had a blessed week, and welcome to December. Yay! We are in December, the last month of the year, where we get to rest and wind and spend time with our family and friends. With that being said, sometimes during this season, although we get, ready to rest, there's also this thing that happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you. I feel like it happens to you, where this is the time where you take stock of what happened in the year. And then I did that and I checked. I'm like, but God, you promised me certain things and they still haven't happened. The issue with this time of the year is like the end of the year. Now you're realizing that it's coming to an end. Like there's a few weeks left in December. Where else, when God promised you something in Jan, you're like, oh no, we still have Feb, we still have March, we still have August, we still have October. But when it comes to the end of November, then you realize, oh, and you know how December is. It just flies so fast. And then you realize, well, is this possible? Then logic starts entering the situation. It starts entering the scene, and logic says, well, chances of this happening are like very slim. So forget about it and look into the new year. And the problem with logic, I've said this before, logic, once it enters, faith runs away. They cannot stay in the same place. And so I found myself in that situation a couple of weeks back where I was like, no, God, not another year. You said this was going to happen. It's December. How can this happen? And maybe you are there as well. You're thinking, well, God, you promised me, the fruit of the womb. You promised that I would get married in this year. You promised that I would get a job, a promotion. You promised that I would start my ministry this year. It's December. Nothing is happening. And logically, it seems like it's not going to happen. When you're looking for a job, you think, well, they are closing down these people. You promised me that you would provide for me to build this house. Companies are closing down. Construction companies are closing down. How is this going to happen? And once we start doing that, our faith starts diminishing. The fire starts going down. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, and we start having a sick heart, which is where I found myself like, how is it gonna happen? Imagine now I'm asking God how. So my business, how? If He promised that it would happen, it's gonna happen. And so I went back to God. I just went back to God, and that's the first place I should have started. And I know in the previous videos I've said it's always the first place that I should start, but we're human, we fall short. And there's sometimes where you look around and you get frustrated or overwhelmed and you feel somehow, and you start being in your own thoughts. And with me, I start feeling like maybe I'm being ungrateful for even uttering these words of like, God, when, but God, and there's bad God when He enters in the scene. That's a good bad God. But there's this, but God, that's a bad one. So I was there and I felt bad and I didn't want to say it. Anyway, He can hear my thoughts. So He knew what I was going through. So I went back to Him. And that's when He took me to Luke 1. So it's the story about Zechariah and Elizabeth. I'm going to read it in NLT version from verse 5. And it reads as such. When Herod was king of Judea, there was a Jewish priest named Zechariah. He was a member of the priestly order of Abijah, and his wife Elizabeth was also from the priestly line of Aaron. Zechariah and Elizabeth were righteous in God's eyes, careful to obey all of the Lord's commandments and regulations. Wow. They had no children because Elizabeth was unable to conceive, and they were both very old. In New King James Version, it says they were well advanced in years, so they were super old. One day, Zechariah was serving God in the temple, for his order was on duty that week. As was the custom of the priest, he was chosen by lot to enter the sanctuary of the Lord and burn incense. While the incense was being burned, a great crowd was outside praying. While Zechariah was in the sanctuary, an angel of the Lord appeared to him. Standing to the right of the incense altar, Zechariah was shaken and overwhelmed with fear when he saw him. But the angel said, "Don't be afraid, Zechariah. God has heard your prayer. Your prayer is heard. Your wife Elizabeth will give you a son, and you are to name him John. You will have great joy, gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth." I got so many nuggets about this whole story, but I'm just going to share the part about waiting, because that's what I was experiencing while I'm waiting for God this year. And I'm seeing that December is upon us and there's a few weeks left. But what I got from this, from the word go, it says that Zechariah and Elizabeth were righteous in God's eyes. So they didn't just see themselves as righteous. God also saw them as righteous. And that stood out for me, because I was like, because I feel like sometimes we feel like, because we are righteous, because we serve God, we do things for God, we love God with all our hearts, and there's nothing wrong with that. But because we do that, we feel like things are supposed to be simple for us, and that is not the case. Clearly here, they were righteous. They were careful to obey the commandments, not just the commandments, but the regulations of God. Yet they were without child. Yet they required something, and this gift wasn't coming. And that means they waited for long, because the word of God says they were well advanced in years. So they had been waiting. So none of us can claim to have waited for as long as they have. None of us can claim to have waited for as long as Abraham and Sarah had. She was 90 when she finally gave birth. 90. Do you know how long she must have waited? So I don't think there's anyone right now in this world that can say, I've waited as long as Sarah, I've waited as long as Elizabeth. They waited long. So we must be encouraged that our waiting, no matter how long we feel like it has been, it cannot be as long as these people. And then as it continues, it says that what I love, this is how we are to wait. We ought to wait. There is something about wait. You don't just wait. You know those people that wait in queues or wait for the bus and they're complaining, they're like, this bus is late. All the time complaining. That attitude. And sometimes those are the ones like in queues at the store, like this line is taking long, and they start murmuring, and then the next person hears it and the next person joins in, and now there's a whole complaint about this waiting. That's not how we wait for God. We can't do that. We have to wait the way Zechariah was waiting. Where was he when the angel found him? The angel found him in the temple, and he was doing as per norm. He was doing what he does for the Lord. So that's how we should wait. So as we wait for God to fulfill his promises for us, or to release what he has promised us, we must continue what we've been doing. If you are serving, continue serving, whatever it is. If you're a youth leader, continue leading that youth. Continue interceding for people. Continue in your ministry. Continue in your work with God. Whatever assignment he has given you, continue. And then when you continue in that path, when God comes, he will find you right where you're supposed to be. Because if Zechariah, for instance, had said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I've waited for God. I've served God for so many years and he doesn't even want to give me a child. I'm not doing this. Imagine that, and the angel went to the temple and Zechariah wasn't there. He would have missed his promise. So he needed to be exactly there so that he can receive that which God had in store for him. What also stood out for me is what it said. It got me excited. That got me out of my funk. Where it says that the angel is telling Zechariah that when John is born, there will be gladness. There will be joy. There will be rejoicing at his birth. That means whatever promise that God is going to fulfill, it will bring joy. There will be gladness. Isn't that something to look forward to? That's something that should fuel our faith, that I've waited this long. There will be joy. There will be joy. There will be gladness in my life. And that there will be rejoicing in my life. But what I notice as well, how wonderful this is, that also got me excited. So when the Holy Spirit was ministering to me during this, like studying this, I was like, you know what? I'm okay now. I'm back in the game now. What stood out for me greatly was realizing who John was. So Zechariah and Elizabeth wanted a child. They thought it was a simple thing. But God was going to give them purpose. He was going to give them a miracle. He had in store for them extraordinary. They were not just praying for any child. It was something extraordinary. And sometimes what we are praying for, we think, I'm praying for a husband. I'm praying for a wife. It can be just anyone that we gel with, that we cool with. You think you're praying for the fruit of the womb. I just want a baby to hold. I just want to be called mother. I just want to be called father. You just want a promotion. I mean, after all, God, it's just a job. It isn't just a job. It isn't just a house. It isn't just a child. It isn't just a marriage. It is purpose. It is ministry, just like John. Isn't that exciting? We should be super excited because we are not getting the ordinary like other people, God. We are getting the extraordinary. That is exciting. And keep in mind that even if they say that Elizabeth, and even if it says that Elizabeth and Zechariah were well advanced in age, in years, God wasn't late. God is never late. We must never find ourselves in a position where we think God is late or that we are delayed. If you have done due diligence, you have prayed, you have fasted, you have gone into warfare, you have broken generational curses, you have done all that, and still it hasn't come to pass, then you need to look at your life. How am I living? Am I living uprightly? Then God will not withhold any good thing from those who walk uprightly. Then you know He's not intentionally withholding it from you. You know that you have not transgressed, you have not sinned. Even if you have, but you have repented. You have not lived in sin. Because sometimes maybe perhaps there's some that feel that, well, I did that the other time and I transgressed. Maybe this is what's happening. No, that's not why. Look at your life. If you repented, if you've gone to God, and if you've just, He forgives us and throws everything that we've done, all our sins, everything that we've done after we've repented in the deepest, darkest part of the sea. So it's not about that. Then if you've done everything right, then you need to realize that perhaps there's something extra to what I'm asking for. Perhaps there's something more great to what I'm asking for. And remember, you are not delayed. We are not delayed because what we are asking for is a John. John was right on time because he was born aligned to Jesus' birth. See that? God was intentional. He is always intentional. When He says that all things work together for our good, it's all things. Everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, they work together for our good. So from the people who were in Zechariah and Elizabeth's life, they might have been saying, maybe they're cursed, these ones. It might have seemed bad even for them. Because people will talk. They will whisper. This one, she says she's a Christian. She goes to church every time. Why's God not giving her a husband after so long? You will hear those chitters and chatters. But if you know that you are upright and you are righteous and you're godly, don't worry about that. Even that is going to work together for your good. Now, it had to happen that way so that when Mary got pregnant and she came to visit her cousin Elizabeth and John jumped in the belly, that was intentional. There was no mistake in that. It was planned by God. Our lives are also the same. Everything is planned by God. So that which we're praying for, that's purpose. That which we're waiting for, that's purpose. We're waiting for extraordinary. We're waiting for great things. This is so exciting for me. This has given me joy. It has renewed my hope. It has restored my hope that whatever I'm waiting for, it's not ordinary. So I need to stop doing this. When is it coming? God, other people, God, my age, God, this and that. I need to stop doing that and just realize that it's gonna happen in its time. There is literally a time and a season for everything. God is never late, and He's not a man that He should lie. So we shouldn't start mistrusting Him just because things are not happening. And sometimes it's because we put time limits on Him. If God didn't tell you it's going to happen in 2022, but He gave you a vision in January, don't assume it's going to happen in 2022. From my experience, God will give me a clear vision this year. 3 years later, that's when it occurs. Does it mean He failed me? No. Does it mean He's late? No, it's right on time. And I feel like I'm always saying, God, I thank you. I thank you that you find me worthy to give me insight of what you're doing in my life. That gives me hope to hold on, to know that my life still matters. Because sometimes you can walk around and God is not saying anything to you. I don't think I've ever walked around like that. I'm so blessed that God always gives me insight into things. Even if it doesn't happen now, it happens in 3 years, in 5 years, but He's always showing me glimpses of the future. And for me, that is a thread, something I can hold on to say, God said. That means my life is far from being over. That means my life still has purpose. And that means surely God is going to perform it. So if you've heard God tell you that in Jan and then you assume automatically it's going to happen in December. No, it doesn't. Unless he said it's going to happen on the 25th of December, then don't restrict God. We mustn't put limits on God. He doesn't have to abide by our limits. And now we'll start saying God failed us or God is late. According to whose time is he late? Your time? No, God is never late. So, and also, like I said, once he releases that promise, just, because Bible will give you the proof you need. After he told Zechariah still had to do that which needs to be done to get Elizabeth pregnant. And after she got pregnant, she had to wait 9 months for that child to come. So sometimes we just think automatically he gives us a word today, then tomorrow it should happen. No. Then after a month, we're like, God. No. Imagine after waiting that long. Even imagine Sarah and Abraham. After waiting so long, even at that 90 years, she still had to get pregnant 9 months. So just because God has released a promise unto you, it does not mean that you're not going to go through due diligence. God is a God of principles. If pregnancy takes 9 months, you're going to wait 9 months. So whatever it is that you're asking for, if it has to go through certain channels according to God's principles, it's going to go through that. Because I'm sure Sarah was thinking, wait. I've waited for this long. I'm 90. 9 months is too long. Can I just get 3 months? Can I get 6? No, she had to wait that 9 months. And we too, whatever God tells us, we still have to wait. The thing is with us, if it's not a child, whatever it is, we still have to wait that time that God is busy with it. And we might feel like it's long. It's not long. I'm saying this again. If you have not waited until your Sarah's age or Elizabeth and Zechariah's age, you have not waited long enough. So just continue waiting, and we need to continue trusting God, and we need to not let the devil, because that's what he does. He's very crafty. He knows by this time everybody's tired. But the type of fatigue that I was feeling a couple of weeks ago, it was over so hard, a heavy heart. It wasn't a matter of it's the end of the year. Yes, it's the end of the year and we want to wind down. But it wasn't that. It was just a heavy heart that, oh God, not another year. You told me this, which year, and another year is going to pass. And even while I'm shooting this, it can happen tomorrow. It can still happen in December. I don't know, but God showed it to me, and I know that it's gonna come to pass. I know that he is not man that he should lie, and he doesn't repent. I know that, and I know that he is true to his word. His word does not return to him void. So I am so hopeful. My hope has been restored. I am so joyous because I know that what I carry is not ordinary. What God is going to give me is not ordinary. It's extraordinary, that because of my life, God trusts me. That also, it humbles me as well, because it's one thing to trust God. We have to trust God. But when you're intimate with God and your relationship grows with God, it gets to a level where he trusts you. He trusted Zechariah and Elizabeth for John. He trusted Sarah for Isaac. He trusted Hannah for Samuel. He trusts me for what I've asked for. He trusts you for what you've asked for. That's why it's taking so long. And believe me, when it's gonna happen, when the time is there, when the season, when the heavens are open, there will be contention. Usually when God is about to drop it, there will be contention, because the devil can sense that something is about to happen in this person's life. This is why we need to fuel our faith. We need to not lose our trust. Because should the angel come and you have lost your faith in God, then you won't even be able to receive it. Or you've moved from where God has said you should be, and you are not doing what God said you must do. Because like I said, after the angel told Zechariah still had to go do what married people do to get babies. That's an action. And sometimes God will tell us this is going to happen. Then he will give us instruction. And until we follow that instruction, it will not happen. It is only Mary is the only one that didn't have to do what married people do to get babies. Everybody else still had to do it. So even as there's certain instructions that God will release upon our lives with the promise, and we need to do and follow those instructions and obey those instructions. So if we are doing all our due diligence, if we are still trusting God and still in faith, and we are on the path that He has set us upon, then when He releases it, we'll be at the right time, at the right place, and in the right space to receive it. But if you lose faith, if you move from where God has told you, or if you don't even obey, sometimes we think we are delayed and we're the one delaying ourselves. God says to you, go and do a particular thing. Yes, I'm going to give you the promotion, but I need you to enroll for this short course. Yes, I'm going to give you the job, but I need you to update your CV to look like this. And you don't do any of that. Then you say God is delayed. He gave you an instruction, obey. And once you obey, obedience is better than sacrifice. Once you obey, you'll see things will start moving. So I just came here to encourage us during this festive season that we mustn't look at other people's life, and while they are taking stock and they are harvesting what they've been sown. And you know how people will take out their list and say they manifested this and that. Don't look at that. If you sit down and you write down the things that God has done for you, what He saved you from, the things that you don't even know He saved you from, the fact that you're awake, alive, oxygen in your lungs, the fact that you have a roof over your head. If you sit down and you write those things down, you'll see that God is still there. If you sit down and you even take stock of the things He's answered you, those that you thought were minute, there's nothing minute. It still is God. It's still big. If you write them down, you'll see that God has been working mightily in your life, and that He's not deaf to hear. He hears all our prayers. The angel came to Zechariah and said, God has heard your prayers. Your prayers are heard. And I'm saying to us today that God is hearing our prayers. God has heard our prayers. God has heard our heart's cry. If you're feeling heavy, go to your Father and tell Him you're feeling heavy. And there's nothing wrong with saying, God, please help my unbelief. Restore my hope in this season so that you can move through this season with joy. That's all we need just to make the devil dizzy. You must just get joyous. You must just start shouting and praising and worshiping and thanksgiving as if you have them already, just to make him dizzy, for him to wonder what's going on. Do that, and also you will start feeling that at this moment, right where I am right now, I am in such a better place than I was 2 weeks back, and it's all because of God's love, God renewing my hope, and the word that encouraged me and showed me that I'm not in this alone, that it's not the first with me, people have experienced it. Also to show me that I'm not delayed, God is not late, and that God is still going to perform that which He said He would in my life. So I hope this helps. I hope you are encouraged, saints. I hope you find joy again. I hope the Lord will give you the joy, His joy, and that you will receive peace. Rest. It's December. Rest in God. Don't rest from prayer. Don't rest from God. Rest in God. Lean against Him. He's your daddy. He wants to comfort you. Talk to Him about whatever you feel, and you'll see He'll give you answers. He'll lead you to scriptures that will also help and encourage you. I thank you for joining me, and remember, 3 things will always remain forever, and that is faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of them all is love. It is in love that I'm here now, so full of joy. The love of my daddy, Him comforting me and affirm Him. And I am so privileged to have a father in Jehovah. Thank you for joining me. See you next time. Bye, saints.